Okay, this video, this is a start of a video. I'm going to show you step by step how I made a acrylic penny floor. If you're interested in doing this yourself, I recommend you watch this. I showed you step by step what I did, how I did it, the problems I encountered. As a preface, I did not have any experience in doing any of this. I never used acrylic. I'd done very minimal tiling, so it's not like I'm some kind of person that does this on any regular basis. I just saw a few videos. People said it wasn't too hard, so I tried it. After doing it, thoughts. It's not rocket science. Anybody could do it. It's physically a lot of work. So depending on how you glue them, be prepared to spend a lot of hours spent over the floor gluing pennies down. I did not have any particular patterns or orientations. I wanted a floor that was a mixture of colors. As a side note, before you start, if you want clean, shiny pennies over the entire floor, when you go buy them from the bank, which you'll visit multiple banks doing it, but you're going to find a lot of dirty pennies. Now, whether you could somehow get them to order you a bunch of brand new ones, I have no idea. That's what we're looking into. But if you're going to get some of the mixture of pennies and want to clean them, then that's a whole different step that I did not bother with. I cleaned them off basically, and I wanted a mixture. I like the result that I got, but again, it's not for everybody. Some people want brand new shiny pennies, or if you want a certain color, then be prepared to spend a lot of time trying to sort that out. And that's it. So we'll watch this step by step, and you will see how I did this. Thank you. So I'm going to create a penny floor. First step is I remove the toilet, cut it off the floor so I can get there. Next step, I'm going to remove all the baseboards and get ready to lay down a base flooring to go over the tile. It's a type of like cement type mix that I got at Lowe's. The guy recommended it, and so I'm going to put that down so that there's a nice even floor to go to. Before I do that, I'm going to sand some of the glaze off the tile and get started. As far as doing the penny floor, I've never really done one before. So it's just going to be a little bit of, I read up on it and looked at a bunch of different sites, and everybody had a slightly different method, but it was all the same. Outside of being labor intensive, it doesn't look undoable. So we'll give it a shot and see how it goes. Alright, so I pulled the baseboards off. The plan is to eventually turn this into a steampunk bathroom. So there's some gaps there, obviously, when they installed the tile. I was here when they built the house, and I guess in retrospect I would have had them do things a little differently. Like put the baseboard over the tile, but nonetheless, this is what I'm left with. So I'm going to try to fill that gap, and then the idea is maybe to do a different type of baseboard that's a little more steampunk down the road. We'll figure that out when we get there, but for now I'm going to try to put the cement to fill this gap so that it's flush all the way through. So now we're going to get out the sander and see what we can do. So I've got the baseboards removed. I cleaned the floor. I gave it a sanding. I'm not really sure how well that came out. I used a combination of an actual orbiter sander and some of these things, which I have. They're just like spinning disc, scouring pad kind of thing. It did rough it up a little bit, but not much. The tile's actually much more durable than I would have thought. It didn't really seem to do a ton. Maybe, like I said, a little bit, made it a little bit rougher. Said you wanted to take the glaze off. So we'll see how it goes. So I've mixed the mortar. As you can see, it's about yay thick, kind of gloppy, but it sticks. So we will be applying that to the floor soon and see how it goes. Okay, so I laid down the cement mixture. It's actually the mixture that goes underneath the tile when you tile a floor. My original plan was to actually lay an entire thick level floor of it, but as I started spreading, I realized that I would never be able to get it perfectly level. Before I started, I used the level that's on the tub there to check the floor, and the floor is very level to begin with. The problems with laying down the penny simply occurred from having to go over the grout lines. So my plan after I started was to just do the grout lines, so make them flush, which is basically what I did. Is I pushed the masonry concrete into the lines and went over it with a like a grout floater and got it to where everything was smooth as I went over. Now I'm sure there's some rough spots, but it's thin enough that I figure when I start laying pennies, I can go in there and sand the rough spots down to get it to level to where I need. So I'll let this dry for 24 hours. I'm gonna go get some pennies and shine some of them up. I also took the cabinet doors off because I'm going to do some painting on that before I penny it. I'm going to go ahead and paint the cabinets, and I'm going to penny the front of the doors and paint the outside frame of the door copper, and so it has the copper pennies on the inside. So like I said, you know, I'm not a professional. This is just me trying a project. I figure ultimately if I screw it up that bad, I can always pay somebody to come out and chip it out and just do it from scratch. So then the only thing I'm out of is my time and the money I've spent. But if it comes out great, terrific. I did it myself. I would have saved a ton of money, and you know, you get the satisfaction of doing something yourself. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, so it's day 2. It looked like my plan worked. I filled in all the gaps. There's a couple minor ones, but it should be workable. Like I said, when I first started, I was going to pour the whole floor. But getting into it, I decided that I'd never be able to get it that level. It was level before I started. All I needed was something to fill the gaps for the pennies to go over this. I used the tile compound that they normally lay tile with. Seemed to do a good job, and the great thing is I can go back over any high spots and I can make it more level. So, you know, and I also anything that got in the tub or whatever came right out. And then the other thing I did was there was this big gap here. This was all a gap. I poured that whole thing. And the great thing is I can come in here, you know, and I can chip it. And I can get it to where it's nice and level. So that the pennies go all the way to the edge. So when I lay the baseboard back over the top, it'll see seamless. The only spot that you'll see the pennies or the end of them will be here. I'm not going to cut the pennies. I haven't decided whether I'll put one of those steps, you know, like that covers carpet to tile or whatever. I'll probably just leave it where you see the edge. When I pour the, I guess it's the epoxy. I still got to research all that. But when I pour that, I'll put a wooden bar between the door sill so that it stops the epoxy right here, and there'll be a clear line, and I'll probably just come back and do like a light sanding to smooth off the edge after I pull it up. You can see I laid this pretty thick. Looks like it's still slightly wet there, but this is it's gonna work good. I'm glad I did it this way, and I'm glad I did not try to pour the floor. So again, okay, so I've started. This is day 3 of the project and day 2 of laying pennies. I started laying pennies, and I've learned a few things. First of all, you got to be mindful of where you want the straight edge. So when I first started, I wanted to start it behind the toilet when it goes back on, and I put some of my older pennies and whatnot, because once the toilet's in place, you're really not going to see any of this. And keep in mind, on all these videos, I will fix all the baseboards and all that. That'll be done. But what I realized as I started going into that corner was that I was going to have a humped up pattern there on the tub. So I switched patterns, and you can definitely see a line. I will be grouting this with a probably a chocolate brown grout or something that matches the pennies good. But at any rate, so that those lines will disappear, and of course the toilet will go over a lot of this. I utilized some of the really crappy pennies underneath the toilet. But you can definitely see where in this section I did not vary my quantity or my quality of pennies enough, and there definitely is a solid darker version of the penny. Once the toilet's there, you won't see a lot of that, and of course you rarely see any of this back here, so it's not a big issue. Here, that will be some of the more varied patterns, and you can see here I varied the pattern. So it was supposed to be a random. I didn't want any specific pattern, but it was random by design. The pennies tend to be about a 50-50 heads or tails, probably more tails because there's more variations in the tail of the penny. But the penny itself, when I separate it, and I've found a few things, you're going to end up with a few that are really, really shiny. They're going to be new. You're going to be, in my opinion, you're going to get a bunch of the ones that I like, which are the more coppery, kind of aged, different hues of copper. And then you're going to get a bunch of really old ones. Now, this gets into a lot of the research that clean your pennies. I clean my penny. If you're looking for a brand new, super shiny, all penny floor, then you're either going to have to do a lot of searching for newer pennies, clean the snot out of all your pennies, or be ready to cycle through. So all these pennies, which look pretty dingy, those are my I really don't want them pennies. They're in there. So if you look, and when you look at the pattern as a whole, it starts to bring out so that you don't have one uniform pattern. The theme of the bathroom I was going for was supposed to be something that one time was very posh. I'm going for a steampunk type bathroom, but it was very posh, like the 20s. But it is aged. So the fact that the floor is aged and has some different patina to it, it actually goes with what I'm wanting. But if you were if I was to do this in my kitchen, that would have to be something I consider. And if you want something that's very, very uniform in color, or you don't want a lot of the darker pennies, then you're gonna have to spend a lot of time cleaning. And it's not just gonna be a dip it in some solution and whammo, there it is, it's perfect. It's gonna be some scrubbing and wiping, and now maybe there's some great solution that works well. I don't know. You're gonna have to research that. If you want a varied pattern, then it's not a big issue. I did do kind of a quick cleaning on some of these pennies. They were much worse before this. But like I said, when you mix it in there, it looks okay. And you're also going to get a lot of pennies that are, you're going to get some Canadian pennies, and you're going to get some older pennies, stuff like that. It's kind of cool to mix that in there and just, mix it up a little bit. It's just part of the fun. But it's going pretty good. We'll update again later. Okay, so I've been gluing pennies for a few days now. It's a lot of work. It's physically not hard. It's just back-breaking because you're hunched over on the ground, sitting cross-legged for days on end, gluing pennies. I saw people do the patterns with contact paper. Some people had problems with it when they tried to lay it. Others didn't. I could see how it'd save a lot of time. The benefit of doing it penny by penny, which a couple of the reviews said they preferred doing it that way, was I can account for errors or unexpected problems easier than doing a sheet. But if you have experience laying sheets of stuff or square tile and you can cut and all that, it's probably just fine. If I did it by contact paper, I guess you'd flip it over and glue each individual one and then lay it down. The people that seemed to do it by contact paper were like linoleum, and they were using spray glue. I did not use spray glue. I used this Gorilla Glue construction adhesive. 100% waterproof, stone, metals. It seemed to do everything. It glued real nice. Of the ones that have already dried, they seem very, very secure. The only ones that I found that you got to be careful on is the ones where it came across the grout lines. It's not that the glue didn't stick to the grout, it's just the grout would come out of the ground if you pulled hard enough. Once it's all done and everything, and it's got the the epoxy or whatever over the top, it won't be an issue. But laying everything down, I'd be careful not to step on the grout line ones. But I stepped on the ones that are glued straight to the ceramic tile, and they're not moving. They're 100% solid. The other thing too is definitely get the gun. Don't try to get the caulk gun. Don't try to get the handheld tubes. I tried the handheld tube at first. You're squeezing it like a tube of toothpaste. B, it doesn't go very far. For the price, you can't beat this. I just poked a hole to the top with a little nail, and just it's easy to squeeze enough of a dollop out to just give the right amount per penny. That's it. As you can see, we're making headway. We're getting there. It's almost done. And also, we're talking about pattern and color variation and how some of them are dirty. You got to understand it's going to look like it from this angle. Up close you see, oh my God, that's a dirty penny. But when you get up here, you see a lot of color. I like that. I did not want to spend 2 weeks shining pennies to get the dark ones out, but it's something that you have to consider before you do this. And the other thing too, it's interesting. Okay, so I've tiled all my pennies, and everything's glued down, it's dried. I've tested it, I seem to be able to walk on it no problems using the Gorilla Glue, everything was fine. Next we're going to grout, because I want to grout it, I don't want the holes in it. And this is what I'm using. Unsanded grout, and I'm going to use like a brown color. Okay, that's it. We'll see how it comes out. Wish me luck. Okay, so I've grouted the floor. Everything went pretty well. As far as grouting, I've never really grouted before, very little anyway. I've done it a couple times, but not an expert. So start in a back corner somewhere where it's you kind of get the hang of it. Pushing into the grout was easy. It was just wiping with the sponge seemed to be the real trick to it. After, you know, maybe the first third of the floor, I kind of got the hang of it, and then it wasn't a big deal. All in all, I think the grout went in really good. I'm happy with it. I'll let it dry, then I'll clean it really good. And then we'll pour the epoxy over the top so that we have a solid sealed floor. Okay, so I laid down the seal coat of the epoxy. That's it there. Turn the light on. I have a cloth draped over the door, and I've got a space heater in there and thermometer to make sure that it's over 75 degrees. I think it's like 82 or 83 in there. But it said that if you do not keep the epoxy at the warmer temperature, 75 or greater, then apparently it will dry cloudy. So I've turned the hair up in the house a little bit to help. Warmer than I like, but it's doable. And then I put the space heater in there to keep it nice and toasty. We'll see. I've never laid epoxy, and I'm a little nervous. Hope it comes out okay. Okay, so I've laid the flood coat. Looks like everything went pretty well. As far as pouring it, I think just immediate thoughts upon just doing it when you start out is pour slowly and wisely. I think I poured a little bit too much at first, and I ended up having to mix a little extra to account for it at the end. But all in all, it came good. We'll see. It's a little fumey in here, so but all in all, the fumes on this particular brand aren't that bad. So I'm gonna hop out. I'm gonna crank the heat on the heater, and we'll see how this comes out. Okay, this is just showing what I used. It was a Best Bar Top epoxy. That's just the bottles that came in. Some of the mixing instructions on how you're supposed to do it. You can pause if you want to read that. It came with the toolkit. That's what I used to mix it, attached to a drill. And I ran it at a very low to medium speed. And if you follow the instructions on mixing, it was fairly simple. I had some extra that I just left to harden in there. And it worked pretty good. So you've watched the whole video. You saw all the problems I encountered, how I overcame them, what I did, my decisions. A couple of quick afterthoughts. So the barrier. So I did not chip out the tile out of this room. You saw how I did that. So I put that wood strip down. Ultimately, the wood strip worked. It would have worked better had I siliconed it or sealed it to the floor somehow. Maybe even mixing up a small batch of acrylic to put down on the floor first and glue that to the ground before pouring the acrylic. When I poured the acrylic, it did seep out from underneath it. Ultimately, it did work. The seepage wasn't horrible, but on the other side of the tile where the seep through and the acrylic stuck to the tile, it's not coming off. I ended up having to take a Dremel with a stone and grinding it down to where it was not noticeable. And I stained it after the fact because originally I planned on taking it up and just leaving the edge of the pennies there. So if I was to do over again, I would have sealed it to the floor first, and before I even did that, I would have stained it the color I wanted, or painted it, or whatever you want to do. Not a big problem, but just you learn things as you go. The pennies you saw, it's self-explanatory as you watch the video. Mixing the acrylic is kind of a key step. I did not have any experience with the acrylic or making it or pouring it or any of that. Follow the directions that come with it, to the T. When you pour it, the key thing is don't try to get every last drop. Once that thing starts slowing down and the bulk of the bucket's gone, toss the rest and mix more. As a result of me trying to get too much out of the first pouring, I had sticky spots that I ended up having to pour a second batch over the top of that and fix it, which ends up with some bubbles and whatnot. It's not a big deal. It's kind of mostly back behind the toilet, but it is there. So if you're doing that, keep that in mind. The second, when I poured the main floor, I did it in two mixing sessions. Half the room was done in the first set. The second half, by then I'd kind of gotten the hang of it by the second set of pouring and mixing. And I had zero problems with that, and that's the section you're looking at here. It came out perfect. I started behind the toilet, so any problems that I encountered with pouring mostly occurred back there, so it wasn't a big deal. The room itself, I'll show you here. We ended up with the copper floor. The idea was to go with a steampunk based bathroom. So we ended up doing that, and we painted the walls different colors that go from dark blue, goes all the way up to a green at the top, and then of course blue ceiling. And the theme was copper, so we made a copper towel bar and toilet paper holder. The shower curtain rod is copper, and of course we got a steampunk shower curtain. And then the lights we did are made from copper piping. And I went and got a series of valves. Went to a very old hardware store around here and got some cool older gauges and a very old valve. And you know, we took the medicine cabinet door off, we painted it, and I made like a little steam gauge thing going on over here just to give it a look. And then of course the mirror, we got a little octopus decoration and found the mirror with a copper edge on it and just hung it from that. And then of course we painted the door, and for those of you who are Doctor Who fans, we went ahead and stuck that on there just because we thought it was cool. And that's it. So watch the video. If you skip to the end, watch it. If you're thinking of doing this, definitely see what I did and, you know, learn from any mistakes or things I did and figure out how you want to do it for yourself. Anybody can do it. It's not rocket science. The hardest part was honestly just bent over the floor gluing these things down for a long period of time. Thanks for watching. Bye.